Are we rolling?
Yes.
No, oh my goodness, it's so exciting. All right, so my name is Ben Piccini. I am a professor at BYU, Idaho, and I am here with Maylee Barth, one of my students. And as part of your class, you have to produce a podcast. And I said early on in the semester, I was like, we were having a conversation about your experience with online learning, and you have, I think it's fair to say, a fair amount of experience with that. And as we talked, I said, I actually think it would be really fun for people to just hear a real life experience of somebody who learned primarily online through high school. And so instead of doing the educational technology review that other people are going to do, I figured you and I could kind of just talk about your experience and what you learned from it and share that with others. So why don't we kick it off with, why don't you give me a short introduction of yourself and also talk a little bit about educational technology and your experience with it.
Yeah. Hi, guys. So again, my name's Maylee Barth, and I did online school from middle school to high school and through high school. So
6
came
years?
into
So sixth grade all the way to 12th grade?
Yeah.
Wow.
So total of 7 years. I loved it. It's a big learning curve, just kind of how to do it. But I've realized that ed tech is really important for you to be able to understand, because it can really help you be a better teacher when teaching online.
All right, so let me ask you some of the really obvious questions. First, you have obviously turned out totally backward and socially inept, and you are not able to communicate with peers or make friends in any way. In all seriousness, have you heard that rumor before? Have you heard that myth? Do you think it's true? Do you think there are people who really need in-person school because it adjusts them better socially? Or do you think it's a myth? What is your take on that?
Yeah, so I have heard that myth quite a lot, and there are certain people who do somewhat fit that stereotype, but there's a lot that can be done to help with that. Just having social time outside of what you would consider school is important in any kid. Having some type of extracurricular or interaction. We had a lot of interaction with church activities and youth groups that we would go to. And then I personally, with my family, travel around the country for work. And so we get to meet new people all around the country and have great experiences with that. They make opportunities with certain schools where you can go to what is called a blended learning center. And I did that through middle school, where you go and do your school there. And then you have break time and you get to have what kind of would be considered recess, and interact with other kids. And so that makes the interactions a lot better and can help with that. A lot of schools can have activities and moments where, oh, hey, we're all going to the zoo this day, and a big group of kids goes to the zoo. So that's kind of what I've seen.
No, that's perfect. So let me ask you this. Do you feel like, it sounds like your family had more flexibility because they were able to move and you could go anywhere. So did you stick with the same school the entire time that you were in this program?
So I was in a program called K-12, and they have state schools specifically. So I'm from Arizona, and so I did AZVA. And I was with them from 6th grade to 8th grade, and then finished through my 8th grade year. And then when I went to 9th grade, the programs slightly changed once you go into high school. And personally, I didn't think I could keep the schedule that they were proposing. And so I wanted to try a different school. So I went to another online high school that had it set up slightly different. They it was more built for summer school, but they did have an all-year school. So I attended that for my freshman year, and realized I needed more help and support, and K-12 was able to give that to me. And so at the beginning of my 10th grade year, I switched back to K-12 and finished with them through graduation.
That's great. So it sounds like your family had way more flexibility.
Definitely.
It also sounds like you had more flexibility.
Yeah, you get to kind of make your schedule during the day, which is really helpful. And you can do it from anywhere with an internet connection, which was a big thing for us.
Yeah.
We chose to do online so that we could travel. We're gone 3 months out of the year if you add it all up. And so public schools, they have an attendance policy, local
Yeah.
ones, that they will fail you if you miss that many days. And I go way over that number of missed days. So it allowed us to still learn, but also be able to travel to work and to go find new things to do. I love American history, and so we've integrated where we're at into our learning on our own. And so it's been really nice to be able to have the flexibility. And if you need
So
help on a certain lesson.
I think it's really important to note that that's not just cool for your family to travel together. It's also part of your educational experience. Those are your field
Mhm.
trips. You're actually getting to see things. And I think that that's really, really important. All right. So on a daily basis, what did it look like? Because, my son goes to, when he was still going to school back before COVID, he would leave at 8, 10 in the morning and get back around 4 o'clock. And that's a lot of time for a little kid. And it always kind of blew my mind. And now that we're doing like at home school, he'll spend an hour and a half doing his work and then he's done. When it actually boils down to what work he has to get done in the day, a lot of what they were doing at school was not really schoolwork. It was recess, it was lunch, it was
Mhm.
go to the library and have fun time, technology time. I asked him what he does for technology, and he loves his teacher, has a great experience, but it's mostly play games online,
Yeah.
right? When you actually reduce it down and say, what are you actually learning that is critical for you to learn? It's about an hour and a half of work every day. Do you feel like that was true for you, or am I seeing things the wrong way?
So I think it's totally valid. Different kids learn at different speeds, at, and that totally plays into how I did my school. So
Mhm.
I have 3 younger sisters, and at the moment they are all now in online school.
Hmm.
But when I was in high school and in middle school, they were still at their elementary school, going to regular public school. So they got up and they left at 8, and that was the way it was. And so I would wake up at a similar time. So I'd wake up at 8, I'd eat my breakfast, get ready for the day, and then I'd go downstairs, and we had these things that were live classes, similar to what a lot of schools are doing right now. And so those could be watched in place of reading the lesson on your own. So reading the
Mm.
material, we had
They gave you
different
two different
options.
options.
So we
So
could
you
either,
So if you decided to travel with your family for those weeks, then you could just get it done on your own time, but you could also come to the class, see what was going on.
hmm and we
So
went
it's
over the
the
same
best of
material.
synchronous and asynchronous.
hmm Yeah,
That's cool. That's really cool.
I
So
really enjoyed that.
high
Um,
flex.
yeah.
Did you find yourself wanting to participate in class, or were you the goody two shoes who got all the work done on your own really quick?
So I didn't like being called on, and asking for help was a really hard thing for me. And so I would not want to go to the classes
Hmm.
because I maybe didn't understand it, or I didn't want the teacher to call on me. But my mom, love her, but I got very frustrated because she would like have me go to the
Yeah.
classes even if I didn't want to, because you're learning at the same time. So she'd have me go to the classes and then do the work online and do all the practice problems, and then I could take the quiz at the end. So because I struggled in like math, I would spend more time on math than, let's say, like history. History I could be done with in 30 minutes,
Yeah.
and I'm done with that. Math, I maybe certain lessons took me an hour and a half or
It just
more.
took more practice. Yeah.
It just took more practice. I needed more help. And so I different lessons take different times, but the way we had our school set up and how we did our practices, I guess you could say, I was in school for probably from 8 till, if I stayed straight through it, I could be done at noon or at 1 or so. It also depended on the day.
Yeah. That's fascinating. But noon or 1 is very different from 4 o'clock. And I
Yeah,
think I
definitely.
think I think essentially what you're saying is it cuts out all of the fluff,
hmm
and you're left, if you wanted to, you could learn for the entire day until 4 at twice the speed, or you can be done and just have a life and
Yeah.
go to activities and have fun and help your parents and whatever else and babysit and all that good stuff. All right, so let me ask you a really important question. You're now a college student. Do you feel like other college students are ahead of you in terms of reading or math or other things? Do you feel like you're right where they are? Do you feel like you're ahead of them? Because one of the things that I hear is, well, the real problem with online learning is that people can lower the standards. Do you feel like you had a lower standard or the same, or yours was more advanced compared to other kids that you're interacting with in college?
So I think that the way I had my school set up, we still had a set curriculum.
Hmm.
And so we had a level of standard that we had to meet with our quizzes. Nothing could be like, it could be augmented if you needed to and if you worked with the teacher, but otherwise they kept us at a pretty high standard.
Interesting.
And so, and since we were teaching ourselves a lot of time through videos or reading that they provided or watching the classes, we had to make sure we knew the material. It was a quiz every day after we finished the lesson. And so we made sure that we could do the quiz, and you had to get an 80% or better
Yep.
before being able to move on. And so I think that I got a higher mastery of certain topics, and then I developed better practices than I've seen in other students. I don't want to,
No, no, no. I think that's
all
entirely
students are
valid.
great,
I don't
but
think you're being judgmental, but
yeah.
so let me just be honest for a second. I asked that question and it was a total trap. And thank you for walking into it exactly as I hoped you would. I was hoping that you would say that because I think that there's this notion that it's lower standards, but that has not been my experience because the reality is those online schools have to really fight for accreditation. And the only way
Hmm.
they can do that is by proving that their students are learning something. Whereas I think that generic public schools, there are a lot of kids who fly through with passing grades that don't learn as much. And so
There's no passive learning. You have to
you can't.
actively be working. Otherwise, you could just sit and watch TV all day
Right.
and not do
But you're
your
not going to get the
school.
grade. There's no way to
Hmm.
get the grade. You're not going to pass those classes. Now, that's a different argument from, I'm not saying it's good for everyone. What I'm saying is if
Oh,
somebody
definitely.
is successful, then you know that they have been held to a bar. Whereas I feel like in public schools, that's not always the case. A lot of times you actually have students who have passing grades, at least sometimes better than passing grades, who haven't really learned the material because things have been, the bar has been lowered for whatever reason. And I don't think that that's fair either. All right, so let me ask you the next question. That's different from asking, is it easier? You've done both. You did some in-person stuff when you were younger.
Hmm.
Between the two, and in college, which do you think is easier?
It's a hard question because it depends on each person. I found that getting help to be able to understand the content was easier in online school, but it's harder because you have to actively be working. You can't just idly be sitting and someone's just teaching you. You have to do the work and put in the hard effort.
Okay.
And it's a learning curve. When I first came to online school in sixth grade, I did not have a lot of motivation
Mm,
or determination to get my work done. And so it took my mom, hey, did you get your lessons done? Let me see your daily plan. Let's
yeah,
see what you did.
yeah.
Oh, you didn't finish this. You need to go do it. Until I built those skills for myself, it was a lot harder. But once I got in the routine of it, it was easier for me.
So let me ask you about those. I, actually, let me be honest and say I'm not going to ask you. I'm just going to say, yes, I agree with you. I actually think that part of what we're trying to build in education is that self-sufficiency. It is that ability to solve problems and to be responsible and to be independent. And I think a lot of times in public school, by being forced to come every day and to show up in school and to sit down in your seat and to say, all right, here's the due date, it just removes that layer of responsibility from a student. Whereas in online school, you have to manage your own schedule. You have to make sure you're getting everything done. Now, I guess the question with this would be, do you see benefit for students who don't have um, parents who are very active and on the scene? As you know, I work in areas that are a little bit more high poverty right now, and a lot of those parents are busy. Um, they're working two jobs. I think there's tremendous promise in educational technology for those students. But I want you to kind of respond. It sounds to me like your parents were a huge part of what you were able to accomplish. What do you think?
I do think parents definitely have a big influence on that. Um, just making sure that you do the work. Um, Without my mom, I probably wouldn't have done all the practice problems. But if I had a teacher who, like, my teachers checked in on me to see how I was doing, and so they did have that support.
Mhm.
Um, I hear a lot of parents that say like, "Oh, my kid could never do that," or "I could never," like the parent could never do that because there's so much work involved. But at this point, it's not very much work for my mom
'Cause she
because
just
we
knows.
learned
Yeah.
she just knows, and
Well, and
they have
I'm gonna be
just like
totally
a little
rude.
work.
I'm gonna be totally rude and cut you
No,
off
you're good.
only to interrupt and say, I think now is a good time to delineate, this is not homeschool.
Oh, definitely. So
That
I have the main difference is like we have teachers that are our teachers. So when we have a question, my mom will say, "Go ask your teacher." It's not
Mhm.
her teaching because
Yeah.
she doesn't know the curriculum. She's not the one teaching it. We have our teachers that are live or available for office hours, kind of like we have in college, where we can go during that time and get any answers, any questions answered, and get help with whatever we need. And so I feel like there's a lot more support with online than there is with homeschool because we have a set curriculum, we have a set teacher who's there specifically to help us.
So let me ask you, you have been uh, phenomenally thoughtful and helpful in this. This has been really fun. Thank you for coming and for doing this. Let me ask you a couple of quick wrap-up questions as we kind of
Yeah.
close here. So the first one is, there are a lot of teachers in the program, in the class that I teach, in the class that you're in, Ed 211, which is amazing. Such a fun class. Most of the people in that class are assuming that they're going to be in a third grade or a fifth grade or a seventh grade or a ninth grade classroom someday, a traditional brick and mortar in that space kind of a place. It is my impression that there are more opportunities than just that, and they're kind of looking a little bit narrow. And one of the things I've tried to tell them is there are 1,000 different things in the education space where you can make a positive difference for kids that are not that traditional classroom. And to be clear, if they want to go into that traditional classroom, all power to you. I want to support you. I want to help you with that. But based on your experience, what I'm hearing from you is there are opportunities that go way beyond just sitting in the classroom. Do you want to talk about some of those that you could see people, going into as a career that are more than just traditional ed?
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is that I've seen is just being an online teacher.
Mm-hmm.
There is a lot of need for that, especially right now with COVID, because so many kids are switching to online. The program my family's been using all these years is they're like, yeah, we had 2 spots left for 6th grade. So if you want to be in, then we need to sign you up. Otherwise, we don't have a spot for you. And
Well, because I
they're
remember I think you said the other day, you said, yeah, 3 people just joined your little sister's
mhm.
class. And then the next week it was like another 4 people joined. And it's just
Every day there's
constantly
more and more students coming into these classes. So there's a big
interesting.
need for that. There's a big need for special ed teachers with online even and
Mhm.
counselors in that way. One of my sisters has uses a special ed teacher, and so she works with her,
Mm.
and they have like concept lessons where they're focusing on what they need on their math or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of need for special ed teachers in that. And that's actually what I hope to go into. I want to go back to online school and teach online. Um, just the same jobs that you would use in a traditional classroom can be used in an online classroom.
So there's still a principal, there's still an assistant principal, there's still a
Yeah,
counselor, there's probably still,
there's
a
multiple
social worker.
counselors. There's multiple counselors. Each grade has an assigned counselor, and
Mm.
then there's an assistant principal for the high school, for the middle school, principal for both. Even the elementary school has all the same options. They have counselors and customer service kind of people that help you with
Yeah,
your
yeah,
tech.
yeah.
So if you have problems with your technology, you call them up, your tech support, and they help you through your problems to help you get onto your classes or whatever it may be.
Mm. So I guess my last question is, um, I think there's this image in our heads of an online teacher being this tech savvy wizard that knows everything about computers and everything about their topic matter and all of these things. That's obviously not true. I am not a tech wizard. I think I know a few things and I like to share, and I really love my content. But what do you think it takes to make a phenomenal class experience for a student? And what are the things that the kids in our, and the kids, the students, the college students in our class that we're taking right now, what advice would you give them if they want to think about something like online school for their career? Or, maybe they want to stay at home and raise their kids, but have the flexibility to also do some work outside the home. Or maybe they want to be an online tutor for a little while, or whatever it is. What are the characteristics that make somebody really, really successful in that domain?
Um, I think being patient, like, and using the same skills that you'd use in a classroom, you just have to be more actively like engaged with your students because you can't look over the shoulder and check on them and see how they're doing. You have to reach out. I've had multiple phone calls from my teachers who, hey, how are you doing? How's this going? And how's your lessons coming? What are you struggling with? But it takes time and effort to check in on those students and to be actively checking in on them and seeing how they're doing because they're not right there. Kind of building the social emotional learning we talked about in our class. It takes a lot more effort to go through the computer because you're not
Yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, there's lots of different skills that you can learn. I've had some teachers who are definitely not tech savvy, but we all learn. And honestly, the students help you because they're like, hey, we need the tools. Oh, great. Here you go. Here's the tools to be able to write on the whiteboard.
That's actually the one that I forgot about. So I'm glad that you brought that up. Is it possible to connect with other human beings in a meaningful community of learners online?
Yes, definitely.
Well, Maylee Barth, thank you so much for coming to my first episode of this nice, fun little podcast. We still haven't even picked a name for it. I think this has been delightful. I think we will continue to talk about this, but I hope that a number of your peers take a look at this and realize there's a lot of possibilities out there that go well beyond traditional education. And thank you for sharing your experience. This has been really fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
No problem. Talk to you later.